When you think of Australia, one name comes to mind, and that name is Steve Irwin. The world famous Australian zookeeper was also well known for his conservationism and television work. With his show The Crocodile Hunter, which was a show that showed off Irwin's impressive skills for environmentalism and his wildlife educating, that while also showed him in many dangerous situations, would have a message of basically keeping the world's wildlife safe and sound for future generations to come. The many things Steve did in his lifetime included making a movie and also being in a famous collaboration with a children's group called The Wiggles in 2002 called Wiggly Safari, which also came out the same year as his movie, that would in turn introduce a newer, younger generation of faces to Irwin's passionate work, including myself, which I still have my childhood CD copy, in fact, actually, as of this recording. Unfortunately, where Steve's story would sadly come to an end was on September 4th, 2006, Irwin would sadly be killed in a freak accident of nature while filming extra footage for his daughter Bindi's show, which we'll be covering in this video today.
After spotting a stingray, Steve and his cameraman dove into the water to record Steve's approach. As Steve passed over its head, the previously calm stingray suddenly struck with its barb. The cameraman captured the event, but didn't realize the severity of the situation until he saw the blood pooling around Steve. He rushed Steve back to the boat, but the pain was excruciating. The 12-inch long venomous barb had pierced directly into Steve's heart. Tragically, Steve didn't survive the trip to the hospital due to massive blood loss. Later, Steve's wife, Terry, made the decision that the footage of his death should never be shown, and the tape was permanently destroyed.
To which, with Steve now gone, what was the Irwin family to do? With Steve being the main poster boy for Australia Zoo, his widow Terry was left with the choice of either marketing their younger kids to keep not only Steve's legacy alive, but also a cash flow that would give their kids and their kids' kids a future in the process of all this, or she could have kept trying to operate the zoo while also losing a lot of profit, to a point where they would have had to have closed down. Since Steve Irwin's untimely death, his kids have made names for themselves, whether it's son Robert, co-hosting the Australian version of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, or daughter Bindi being in movies and their reality show, Crikey, It's the Irwins. Today we're not talking about that stuff because, one, anything that has the Irwin children in a bit part does not count for this video, so don't ask me. I want to cover Bindi's film career in a separate future video, possibly along with Crikey, It's the Irwin, so that this video doesn't end up being between 6 to 9 hours long. Which I don't want to make that sort of video as it ain't my style of content to make. At most, I prefer to make a video that's as long as a movie, so like an hour and a half, and tell you all a bit about said thing I'm reviewing or looking back at. So let's first take a look at the first product, called Bindi the Jungle Girl, which aired on June 9th, 2007 in the United States on the Discovery Kids channel. Or in Australia, for my Aussie viewers, it aired on July 18th, 2007 on the ABC for Kids channel. Not the American channel, but the Aussie channel, you cunt! The show follows a very simple formula, which is Bindi covering a range of animal topics relating to the Irwin family's love of wildlife and animal conservation. But also included in this show were songs and dances which are performed with a group called the Croc-Men, or as I call them affectionately, the Cock-Men, because even as a kid I thought they were annoying and cringy as fuck, no lie. I mean, especially this guy. Plus, Bindi answers questions sent in from viewers all over the world in her Bindi's blog segments. Like, you know, I forgot this was a thing until I re-watched this show for the review in prep for this video. However, honestly now as an adult, this makes me wonder what would have ever happened if they were filming this segment, for example, and a grossly inappropriate message came in accidentally being like,
"Hey, Bindi, my name's Johnny, and I'm a 12-year-old boy from Texas. Was wondering, could I maybe see you naked, please?"
But I'd imagine not only the people behind the scenes would filter the messages, of course, but, you know, like before filming, but also some cops would, I'm pretty sure, would find the person and arrest said emailer for these inappropriate messages. It would be like this sort of shit.
FBI, open up!
While the show is very educational and interesting from a child's perspective, however, as an adult, for me, it has aged horribly in the sense of what even most people saw at the time as nepotism or exploiting the fact that Steve Irwin died to get his daughter on TV, especially when talking about the music, which is pretty awful. I mean, in the sense of Bindi having a weak singing voice, and the production and the backing vocals sounding way too polished in the mixes. But I mean, if Steve Irwin had the money from his shows to, pay for vocal lessons and recording studio time for her, then okay, I mean, that's cool.
Save me from the man with the gun. Save me.
Well, I'm happy to criticize later Irwin products like Robert's children's books or Bindi's Bootcamp, which I feel were personally made out of greed and consumerism. However, with this show, while formulaic, you can tell that Steve legitimately loved his kids and wanted to help their confidence, especially being out in the public eye, as well as to get his message of wildlife conservation out there for the younger generation of kids, discovering animal wildlife and learning about it for education. However, one thing I can't forgive, like I said, is the music, which is god-awful. I mean, it's like Bindi, while having the personality of her dad, she honestly can't sing for shit. Like, listen to some of these songs on YouTube and you'll know what I mean. In season 1, it's mainly a mixture of Bindi getting her television start in the forefront, while her dad is mainly featured and showed as he was alive when the first season was being filmed, in fact. However, in the second season, they filmed it after he sadly passed, and as a result, it is more of a vehicle for Bindi to feature in about 90% of the product, while archival footage is used of Steve, sourced from his over 50 documentaries he did. The show, however, would end its 2-season run on December 20th, 2008, which I'd assume means it ended here in Australia around that time. Well, I guess the Americans stopped airing this show sometime in 2009, if I'm correct. I may be wrong. Please comment if you remember this show. Well, now let's continue with the other 2 major Irwin Children's products. Sorry, that sounded weird. Now let's continue with the other 2 major products of the Irwin children. In around 2011 or 12, Terry decided again to get Bindi back into the spotlight after her earlier show ended and the failure of Free Willy Escape from Pirates Cove, which of course went straight to DVD because all good movies go straight to DVD. Anyways, the result of this was Terry having Bindi star in a kids game show called Bindi's Bootcamp, which honestly I have never watched, in fact, until this year, and I barely remember it besides a few promos for it, which I had no interest of watching as my childhood Bindi Irwin crush had all but died at this time, as I was becoming a horny preteen with too much testosterone to burn and not enough watching TV time, minus the odd thing here and there that I enjoyed. The show's premise is very simple in that you take a group of 6 kids between the ages of what I would assume to be 7 to 14 years old, or the general audience that this show and its channel ABC3 were marketed to at the time, which that would basically set the kids up in a series of challenges involving, of course, wildlife and the Irwins' love for animals. While this show could have had a lot of potential for its subject and challenges from reading up about it in preparation for this video, that would have been cool for the 2012-2013 timeframe, but unfortunately after watching a few episodes, which I did in preparation for this video, the challenges become very repetitive and tedious in that nothing changes every time you're watching the show. Basically, the same stuff happens every episode without nothing new really added, just basically repeating everything said and done for this said show. Minus the odd, weird, and quite at times questionable things. Like, for some reason, Wes eating random-ass bugs and other insects because, get it, old man doing weird stuff to entertain kids, am I right? I didn't forget Bindi, who of course was the main star power and presenter of this show. While I respect that she did this and understand why she did this in a way, at times her enjoyment at this hosting gig she's given here goes from this almost completely fake-ass, really over-the-top happiness to this completely different I'm dead inside energy, stop this bullshit type of vibe, which makes me sad in comparison to Bindi the Jungle Girl. At least in that, while she could be annoying and irritating at times, it seemed like there, she at least wanted to do it, compared to here, where it just feels like she's too old for this watered-down kitty shit. Which, I mean, is completely understandable in that, by the time this show aired, I think she was between 13 to 15 years old, if I'm correct from memory. And I get wanting to do bigger and better things. Like, I think she completely stopped singing in the shows at Australia Zoo that she had done with the Crockmen at this time. So I'm guessing this was finally where Terry realised that Bindi wasn't getting any younger and most likely wasn't interested in doing kids' entertainment for the rest of her life. Overall, the show could have had potential, like I said, but I feel as that the people behind this show ran out of steam really fucking quickly with ideas and shit, and how to keep it entertaining and fresh and interesting for the audience that they had in mind. Plus, Bindi, while in her early to mid-teens at this point, feels out of place for this sort of game show, in that you can tell she's phoning it in and is overdoing these sort of kid shows. Minus the negatives, there are some positives. Like, the animation is actually not bad to look at, considering the channel it's on. Plus, the editing and presentation actually flows with what it's presented here, and is nicely done. Is this a show I'd watch again? Well, no. But would I knock it for anyone interested in watching or revisiting this show? No, of course not. But it's not my cup of tea. That's all I've got to say. But then again, I ain't the viewer this show is marketed to, of course. Anyways, finally, thanks for watching this video. I promise new videos are in the works. It's a matter of finding time and having better internet connection where I am, honestly, that I am editing these videos in. At the minute, I'm currently editing this video in the radio station I work for. I'm currently editing this video in the local community radio station I work for. So, I'll try and present this video the best I can. Until next time, have a good day, you sick cunts.